Chapter 3 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. A consideration of the uses that pain visibly serves in human life may add weight to the thoughts that have been suggested, for these uses, which have been often dwelt upon, are by far too limited, even if they were otherwise adapted, to give the key to its existence. 3 uses of pain are recognized, and indeed cannot be overlooked. 1. Bodily pain prompts us to many actions which are necessary for the maintenance and security of life, and warns us against things that are hurtful. It has been often pointed out how largely that which contributes to health is attended with pleasure, and how constantly the access or causes of disease are accompanied by pain. Cold and hunger, for example, lead us to feed and clothe ourselves, and when excess begins, there comes satiety and disgust. These things are true, but they exhibit only one side of the facts. If pain is in these respects often beneficial, it is also often harmful, and in almost all cases is liable to exceed in immense degree the amount which is needful to secure its beneficial influence. The pain of many diseases, by the exhaustion it produces, is one of the chief sources of their danger, while in many cases, as in the abuse of intoxicating drinks, it wholly fails to indicate the most fatal perils. And not only is life, in many cases, crowded with useless or excessive pains, but our sensibility itself seems to be more developed for pain than for pleasure. Is not the power of suffering in excess of our power of enjoyment? Is not our power of suffering in excess of our power of enjoying? Intense enjoyment can last for but a short time, and when once the limit of fatigue is reached, the pleasure itself may become a source of torture. But pain may continue undiminished, even growing in severity, until life itself succumbs. Indeed, if we bring ourselves resolutely to look at all the facts, are we not almost compelled to feel that our nature, at least our bodily nature, is constituted for pain rather than for pleasure? It is to the former that it vibrates, if not the most readily, at least the most intensely and most proactively. Nor can we overlook here that strange law of our constitution by which a comparatively slight pain will spoil much happiness, and even turn what should be pleasure into bitterness. There is no adequate explanation, therefore, to be found of pain in the beneficial effects which it produces in respect to our physical existence. It serves these uses, is benevolently meant to serve them, doubtless, as our hearts irrepressibly affirm, but it exists independently of them. Its source lies deeper, and its ends are larger. 2. But secondly, pain serves as a punishment for sin. It follows wrongdoing, in the forms of bodily disease or want, of mental anguish, or social vengeance. Suffering is the minister of justice. This is true in part, yet it is also inadequate to explain the facts. Of all the sorrow which befalls humanity, how small a part falls upon the specially guilty, and how much seems rather to seek out the good. Nights spent in dissipation bring ruined health. Nights spent in fond watchings by beds of pain bring alike an equal ruin. To what sufferings children are subject, and indeed all who are not able to protect themselves. We might almost ask whether it is not weakness rather than wrong that is punished in this world. Nor is there a wider basis for the idea that physical pain punishes the violation, not of moral, but of physical law. Not to speak of the cruelty which thus inflicts the last punishment upon the ignorant, and treats misfortune as a crime, the relation itself as partial as the others, or in the poverty which presses upon the weaker members of a thickly peopled country. Pain avenges the majesty of the violated law, physical and moral, but it does not exist for this. 3. But there is another end which pain fulfills, a worthier and more satisfying one, perhaps, than either of those that have been mentioned. It disciplines and corrects the erring, chastens and subdues the proud, weans from false pleasures, teaches true wisdom. Happily it does, but only in some cases. Unhappily, it more often fails to teach or to subdue. it often hardens or perverts. Pain is used for discipline, but can we say that it exists solely for that end, when those to whom it is no blessing, but a curse, to whom it arouses only bitterness, or sinks merely into despair, have no exception and seem to plead in vain for pity? Most often in this sad world, pain works, to our eyes, evil and not good. And where it works no good, it often falls most heavily. Some other source and reason must be found for pain than the moral benefit it visibly brings the sufferer. And if neither of the uses we have thus observed in pain can even seem to furnish the reason for its existence, so neither can they when taken altogether. There are pains innumerable which benefit neither the body nor the soul, which punish no moral wrong, which vindicate no material law against voluntary breach. Take, for one instance, the sufferings of industry condemned to reluctant illness, which leads so often to discontent and bitterness of heart. All these we have enumerated are secondary purposes served by pain. They do not conduct us to its source, nor reveal to us its meaning. Neither does the fact that the progress of man and the development of his powers are prompted and maintained by the discomforts and evil which he feels. For pain often paralyzes instead of stimulating, and reduces to impotence energies of the utmost value. We must therefore accept pain as a fact existing by a deep necessity, having its root in the essential order of the world. If we are to understand it, we must learn to look on it with different eyes. And does not a different thought suggest itself, even while we recognize that others fail? For if the reason and the end of pain lie beyond the results that have been mentioned, then they lie beyond the individual. Pain, if it exists for any purpose, and have any end or use, and of this what sufferer can endure doubt, must have some purpose which extends beyond the interests of the person who is called upon to bear it. For the ends which have been mentioned include all that concerns the individual himself. That which surpasses these rises into a larger than the individual sphere. From this ground it becomes evident again that, to know the secret of our pains, we must look beyond ourselves. These uses of pain, which concern the one who suffers only, must fail and be found insufficient. They ought not to be enough, for they do not embrace that which is unseen. Confining ourselves to that which is visible to us, we ought to find ourselves in darkness, unable to answer irrepressible questions. But when we extend our thought, and recognize not only that there are, in pain, ends unseen by us, but that these ends may not be confined within the circle of our own interests, surely a light begins to glimmer through the darkness. While we look at only that which concerns the individual who suffers, no real explanation of suffering, no satisfaction that truly satisfies, can be found. But if we may look beyond, and see in our own sufferings, and in the sufferings of all, something in which mankind also has a stake, then they are brought into a region in which the heart can deal with them and find them good, and if the heart, the reason also. For here it is the soul that is judge, and if the heart is satisfied, the reason is also content. End of chapter 3 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey.